Do you want to know how to teach a developmentally delayed child to read? I'm Nicholeen Peck, and I teach parenting, good communication, education, child development, how to build strong family bonds all over the world through the lens of the principle self-government. I'm also the mother of 4. I've homeschooled all 4 of my children, as well as being the foster parent of many neurodiverse and developmentally delayed young people. So in this video, we're going to be talking about things that you can do to improve reading. When we have children who we're working with who are developmentally delayed, we can get a little bit frustrated with the educational process. If I could just tell you right at the front, be patient. People do learn. It can happen. So hopefully in this video, I give you hope and also tips. So we're going to be talking about what the landscape can look like when a person has developmental delay, but also what you can do to help your child learn to read. All right, so what does it look like when a person is developmentally delayed? Well, when a person is developmentally delayed, then that person usually has a harder time putting things together. So when somebody is developmentally delayed, their brain is struggling to hook together pieces that would normally happen at that age, right? And this doesn't need to be something that we concern ourselves with, because there are actually many people that are developmentally delayed that might not be actually diagnosed as developmentally delayed. They might struggle learning their letters, learning which way is forward and backward, right and left. They might have a hard time putting together sentences, learning vocabulary words in their speech. They might have a more difficult time with some of their body movements and their activity levels. Those types of things could also be considered developmentally delayed. So what is developmentally normal? I mean, when a person is developmentally normal, they hit certain milestones by a certain age. But there is a large percentage of the population that does not hit those milestones right on time. Maybe they were preemies and born early, or maybe they just are more tactile at first, and putting together the pictures and the directions of things in a puzzle are difficult. Or maybe they have a harder time with speech, and those speech delays are making it so that they have a struggle getting the words out, even if they can actually read things on a page, or they know what is being communicated to them. So sometimes there's auditory processing issues, sometimes there's verbal processing issues, sometimes there's sensory issues that come in that make it hard to stay focused on certain things. There's a lot of different reasons that a person could be experiencing some developmental delay that could impact their reading. So I homeschooled all 4 of my biological children, and many of my foster children begged to be homeschooled. In fact, for many of them, I helped them with their academics and their reading comprehension and those types of things, even though they were in junior high and high school, because they'd just been matriculated along and some of their skill development had slipped through the cracks. They saw that I was teaching 3-year-old children to read, and they were like, "Can you just help me with my reading?" And so I said, sure. And so I've actually taught a lot of people how to read, and not just my own foster children and my biological children, but many parents have come to me over the years and said, "Could you please help me teach my child to read?" Sometimes even school teachers have said to me, "You know, I teach school, I teach elementary school, I should know how to do this, but Nicholeen, clearly you know how to do this really well, and can you just help me get my child reading early?" And I would say, yep, sure, here we go. So there was a method for reading that I used. I got introduced to it early on, and it was called the Hansen reading method, or the Lynn Hansen reading method. That particular reading method is now called Rocket Learning. And Rocket Learning is a fantastic way to help a person with developmental delay learn to read, because instead of being focused on memorization, which can be difficult for even just, developmentally normal or even advanced people, but for sure for developmental delayed people, this program, the Rocket Learning program, focuses on learning songs, learning little formulas that they can apply to almost anything, and it doesn't really revolve that much around the memorization. So they learn to sort things and diagram and diagnose each word individually. Now I know that for some people that may sound like, oh, that's way more work. I promise you it is not. It is way less work. On this channel, over the years, I've made multiple videos about reading. So if you've already subscribed to this channel, then you probably already have seen some videos related to reading. I'm going to hopefully tie some of those videos into what I'm talking about right now. So in the Rocket Learning approach, you learn certain songs such as A with a vowel after says A, E with a vowel after says E, I with a vowel after says I, O with a vowel after says O, U with a vowel after says U, or oo. So when you learn that in a syllable of a word, if there are two vowels, the vowel after says nothing and the other vowel says its name because there was a vowel after, that liberates you. So all you have to know is what are the consonants, what are the vowels. In the Rocket Learning method or the Lynn Hansen reading method, there are charts that teach the vowels and the consonants in a way that make complete sense for the children. And then there are the songs so that once they know what the vowels are and the consonants are, then you can use the songs and the charts to help the person understand the words. So I actually started with my children, with Lynn's suggestion, to learn the long vowel sounds first. This is contrary to what is usually taught when people learn how to memorize word patterns with their reading. Many times in school, children are taught their short vowel sounds first. So they're taught words like mom, dad, bag, cat, dog, those types of words. But instead, I taught my children words like name, goat, coat, bake, cake, rake, those types of words. Kite, bike, those are usually some of the later lessons when you're first beginning reading. But with the Lynn Hansen or Rocket Learning method, those are the first lessons. And once they can look at those bigger words and understand what they mean, then when they get to the smaller words, it's actually more simple, especially because they know that if there's only one vowel, then it's a vowel without. And there are songs for without. A without says apple. E without says elephant. I without says igloo. O without says octopus. U without says umbrella. Now, of course, there are some exceptions to these because the English language is kind of like a collection of a lot of different languages. Of course, there's the Germanic and Latin roots that come into it, but then there's all of these other sources that end up feeding into our language. So the words don't always keep those rules, but by and large they do. And at first you start with the rules. Now, when a person is developmentally delayed, don't focus heavily on a lot of the reading out of books. What you're going to want to do is, at first, when you read to your child, this is a book that I've written called London the Ray Says Okay, that teaches the skill following instructions. So if you've been on this channel for a while, you know that I've got some great resources for teaching skills of self-government to children. Anyway, so if you had this book, then this is how you would read it to the child. So let's say I'm focusing on a certain letter at the very beginning. Okay, so I'm going to be reading this story and we're going to do P. So every time I touch P, then I'm not going to say it. I'm just going to touch it and they're going to say P because they've learned that P says P, P. Okay, so then when I read a P word, they say P and then I read the word. So it says, on Tuesday, the family went to the park. They laughed and played until it got dark. While they were busy playing, Daddy said, "Oh dear, the food is not protected and the birds are coming near." Now we have the child is saying the consonant sounds, the P's. They can also get into vowel sounds when we start learning those letters. But after we learn some of our songs, now there are going to be certain words that the child could read. They might not be able to read the entire book. There are some books like Bob books and stuff like that you can get where they can read a lot more of the words in the books. When we're going to stop here and like the word dear, D-E-A-R, well, it's E with a vowel after. We don't say the A. That's why E says E in that word. So we're going to stop at that word. Any word, dear or near, this book has a lot of rhyming in it, and so there's going to be a lot of similar things that they can read the word dear and the word near, and it's going to be simple for them because they're going to see the pattern once they have diagrammed those words out. So anyway, when the child reads a book like that with you, it takes off some of the pressure of being able to have to come up with more of those words. Even if you're going through the little Bob books or the easy readers at the very beginning, you can do that with the child so that they feel like they are reading the book. Now, another thing that I do is word lists. So before I even present them with Bob books, we're probably going to take a week or two and just read word lists every day. We're going to start with long vowel sounds word lists, words that match the rules all the time. And then I'm going to add a short vowel sound word list. So this is going to be, I'm going to take like a legal notebook, maybe with no lines on it, so I can write the words nice and big. And then I can use the rocket learning method of diagramming so that they can see where things are in the word, and they can read that word very carefully as they see it on the page. And I'll flip the pages every about maybe 8 or 10 words as we go through these lists. So basically this whole art notebook that's legal size is full of just words that we flip through. Once they can read through these words really well, and they can start pointing out words and reading them when you're pointing it on the page, then we can start pulling out those Bob books and starting to do those reading things. Those are some great starter tips for teaching a developmentally delayed child to read, but there is so much more. In fact, I have multiple videos on this channel related to teaching reading. But as you're teaching them to read, be sure to also help them manage their anxiety or disappointment when they don't get something right. When they are trying to read a word and it doesn't turn out right, that's just a no answer. What's a no answer? That is one of the basic skills of self-government. And you can learn about how to accept no answers on this channel as well. So if your child learns to accept a no answer, they can handle their frustration and get through that reading a whole lot faster. Find videos on this channel about accepting no answers and about reading. I'll see you there.